So I ran into an old friend the other day, and I said, "You should come over to the house and visit me." She said, "Well, that goes both ways. You can come ring my doorbell anytime." Well, no, I actually can't get to your doorbell to ring it. What if your world was like this? Or this? Imagine what your life would be like if you could not access the average home. 10 years ago, I was riding my bicycle, training for a triathlon, when a woman in a minivan pulled out in front of me after not yielding at a stop sign. Since then, my world has completely changed. What would it be like for the physically disabled if they could have access everywhere like you and feel comfortable in the community? Can you or I make our community more accessible? Of course we can. But how? I know most of you are more than happy to reach on a top shelf in a grocery store or open a door for somebody in a wheelchair. But are you willing to look deep into your own environment and make changes? There are many different ways and opportunities for someone to make the world more accessible. I'm going to talk about a few things in 3 different areas: where we live, our homes; where we work, our businesses; and most importantly, our behavior. After I was injured, we did not have to do a lot of things to make my home so I could live in it. We added a ramp and widened, I believe it was 2 doors. But I still could not access more than half of my house. We had to move my family room upstairs to the main floor. We had to move my bedroom downstairs to the main floor. And we moved the kids' rooms upstairs. I actually made them videotape their rooms after they cleaned to make sure they had done a good job. Fortunately, I was blessed to be able to design and build a home that I could go everywhere in. If you get the opportunity to build a new home, I encourage you to build a forever home, a home that you can live in no matter what your situation. The first step to an accessible home, of course, is the entrance. As you can see in this picture, the entrance is flat, no ramp, no stairs, straight shot right through the door. And in this next picture, there's a gradual sloping ramp that goes up to the door with no stairs. Now, if you like the look of stairs, why not do both? You can work a ramp into the landscaping right next to it or at a different door. Accessible entries are really great for strollers, and if you're in that particular stage of life, or I'm sure most of you have purchased a new appliance, refrigerator, stove, couch. Moving in furniture and appliances is a breeze with an accessible ramp. Next, you need to design at least 1 bathroom and 1 bedroom on the main floor that a wheelchair person could use. Make sure you're making your doors wide enough for wheelchair entry, and make your hallways at least 36 inches or 800 millimeters wide. And think about where you're putting your heavy furniture and try to keep your pathways as open as possible. Many of these things aren't in building codes for homes, but they make your home more accessible. Remember, as we age, we become less and less mobile. And with the cost of retirement homes, it's becoming more and more expensive. So planning a forever home can make those transitions in your life so much easier. If you already own a home, when the necessity of remodeling comes, make an effort to see if it can be done in an accessible way. If you're remodeling a bathroom on your main floor, consider reconfiguring the space. After I was injured, I was unable to spend a long time in my mother's house because I could not get in her bathroom. And as we all know, the longer you stay somewhere, the more important that becomes. So my mother completely gutted her bathroom and remodeled it for me. I think she loves me. She didn't have to move walls. She just had to reconfigure some stuff. Here you can see an accessible bathroom where you can get to the toilet and wash your hands with ease. Now keep in mind, your bathroom does not have to be completely remodeled or ADA compliant to be accommodating for someone in a chair. It might just be widening the door or even just changing the swing of the door to the opposite direction. When you're considering a facelift to your house, try to incorporate a ramp to at least one entry. It doesn't have to be a big cement triangle with big heavy bars. You can see how this ramp is accented with some inlaid brick and flower beds on the side. And this next ramp, that looks like it's just newly put in, has room for shrubs and flowers to dress it up. Now, accessibility doesn't have to be awkward looking. You see how cool they made this deck accessible? Who wouldn't want one like that? An accessible home is not just beneficial for those that live in it. You may have parents, extended family, or friends that have mobility issues. Knowing that they can access your home and be comfortable is a huge relief. We can also change our places of business. I have a friend who's a veterinarian. She started her business as a house call practice. After a few years, she decided to open a permanent office on a small acreage. She found an old army barracks and moved it onto the property and remodeled it. When she got the price for the cement stairs and ADA-required accessible ramp, she was shocked. She was a single mom with a small business, and expenses were pretty tight. She didn't feel she should be required to have a ramp since she could service the disabled by house call. She knew other businesses out there that weren't as accessible or accessible at all. She felt quite resentful at the extra financial expense at such a tight time. That feeling, though, was very short-lived, as she saw how many of her clients actually preferred the ramp over the stairs. And she found it so much easier to access her building with older animals and when moving equipment in and out. That ramp benefited her business in ways she did not even imagine. Keep people with disabilities in mind when you're remodeling or building your new business. Work with your city building departments to make sure it's ADA compliant. If you're renting, make sure it's already ADA compliant. Try having as many wheelchair accessible work areas as possible. Employing the disabled is a benefit to the whole community, a benefit to the employer, and a benefit to the employee. To get out and work helps make you feel a part of the community and makes you feel like you've made a contribution to someone. Try to go beyond what is required by law. Try to avoid trends that are not accessible. For instance, the really tall bar height tables are unpopular right now. As you can see in this picture, try and count how many places I would not be able to sit. If you know a person in a wheelchair, ask them for advice. They can help you with the placing of furniture, where to put your soap dispenser in the bathroom, hand towels, mirrors. Also ask them to look for obstructions in your sidewalks, entrances, and hallways that might prevent them from getting in and out easy. Be sure and check your parking accessible spaces. Make sure you're up to ADA codes. As you can see in this picture, we can clearly see 3 spots there, but there are only 2 signs. There should be at least 1 sign per parking space and another one in front of the access area that says no parking. You think that might be excessive? Well, what happens when it snows? People park in all sorts of interesting places when that happens. And speaking of snow, try to keep the snow shoveled from your accessible parking spaces, your walkways, and the curb cuts. Here you can see this space is half filled with about 2 feet of snow, rendering it unusable for a wheelchair person. Try to clear the snow from the curb accessible parking also. When the snowplows come through at night, they pile the snow up on the curb. For a person in a wheelchair to let their ramp down over that curb and get out is impossible. Clearing snow and other obstacles is also good for people with other disabilities. Can you imagine being blind and going out to your usually well-known paths of travel and finding big piles of snow in different places all over it, now we can talk about the most inexpensive way to make your community accessible: your behavior. 11 years ago, I was like everybody else. I thought I was considerate to people in wheelchairs. I never, ever parked in a handicap spot. And I opened doors for people in chairs and the elderly all the time. That was the extent of what I knew about the needs of the disabled. Unfortunately, those are only a couple of the issues that I now face on a daily basis. For instance, waiting in front of the handicap stall at the airport while you're trying to catch a flight, and there are 10 people that get to go in front of you in the other stalls, and the person in the stall is talking on her cell phone just standing there. Or waiting for the accessible bathroom at the swimming pool while the mom inside the stall is fixing her daughter's hair. Yes, those things have happened to me. Most of us don't understand or see the needs of the disabled because we haven't lived it. But luckily, we can learn about those needs, and we don't have to learn the hard way, like I did. Discipline yourself to make a conscious effort to support businesses who are accessible. For instance, if you're planning an event, say a reception of some sort, make sure the venue you pick has a wheelchair entrance and an accessible bathroom for the comfort of all your guests. And one important thing is, if you see somebody you think might need help, be sure and ask them first before you render assistance. Most people value their independence. I personally like the exercise that I get from an uphill push. And I really don't trust very many people to push me along. Most people don't know what obstacles to look for in the sidewalk or ground and could end up dumping me right out of my chair. One thing you can do when you're at the gas station, if you see somebody in a wheelchair gassing up, offer to wash the windows of their car. The windows on my van are so high I can't reach them, and they are almost always dirty. For those who use accessibility, use it with courtesy. If you have a handicap placard and don't need a wheelchair, try not to park in the accessible van spots, unless it's the only one available, of course. If these aren't marked, they are the spots with the very wide yellow, white, or blue striped area on the right-hand or passenger side of the van. Use another handicap spot if it's open, and try to leave that van spot for people that need it. Be courteous and try not to park over the lines. Parking over the lines interferes with other people's access. This is a situation I've been in many times, but usually when I'm coming back to my van, I always have to ask someone to help me get over the lip of my ramp and push me back into my vehicle, or ask some perfect stranger to move my vehicle for me so I can enter it. Most importantly, try to go a little further than expected. Be the homeowner that shovels the snow and ice from in front on the walkways in front of a home or the driveway of a home of someone who's unable to do it. Or be the business owner who shovels snow from in front of that business that is unoccupied and hasn't been done. Or if you're the business owner in the middle of the block, make that effort to walk down to the corner and shovel that snow and ice that's been piled up by the snow plows out of the curb cuts to make it so they can cross the crosswalk and get onto the sidewalk without any assistance. Make an effort to change your thought process to include those with physical limitations. It's important to remember there are lots of ways to end up in a wheelchair. You can be born with it. You can be involved in a car crash. You can slip on the stairs. You can be injured serving your country. Or you can simply age. You or a loved one could be in the future in a wheelchair for a short time or forever. How could you continue to work and enjoy your community as everyone else if there's no accessibility? What would you want? A life of complete homeboundness or limited access just because you couldn't get to it? Imagine if someone like me could ring every doorbell in town or park anywhere. Now, how would my life be different if that was the case? We all have the ability to make these things happen, even if it's only one ramp or one doorbell at a time. Thank you.